Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you've had a really good tech week. We've enjoyed all of the sessions this week, so just a big thanks to everyone who participated and presented all week. Our final discussion presentation is coming from our digital colleagues in Australia. So James Vidler is a senior solutions consultant within the Australian business, and he's going to share some of the learnings from the Land IQ project, which is a planning system that they developed for the New South Wales government. So I'm going to hand this across to you, James. Before we start the presentation, just to let you know, we'll be doing a Q&A session after the presentation. So please feel free to put your questions through on the chat, and I'll run through those at the end. So yeah, back to you, James.
Thanks, Chow. Hi, everyone. I'm James Vidler. I'm, as Chow said, a senior solution consultant at WSP Digital Australia. The talk today is going to be on Land IQ. I've been at WSP now for about 18 months. I've spent about 25 years in the industry, in the IT industry, both from an operational and consulting point of view. I've worked in both the public sector and the private sector in jobs ranging from higher education through to local government. Prior to joining WSP, I spent 4 years at the City of Newcastle helping them build their smart city capability from the ground up. And as said, today is all about Land IQ. So what I'm going to do is just share my screen, which will just take me a little bit of mucking around. Okay, so we'll get to it. It's Land IQ, which was commonly known as a standardized land use evaluation tool, and it was sort of rebranded to Land IQ to give it a bit of a snappier title. But I would just like to start with an acknowledgement, and that the Forest Stewardship Council, Australia and New Zealand, acknowledges the traditional owners of the land. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, for they hold the memories, the tradition and the culture of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I would also like to mention and honour the tangata whenua of this Aotearoa, the Maori people, and their connection to this land. So just a bit of an overview. The client for this project was the Department of Planning and Environment. We refer to them as DPE in Australia. And it was a partnership between WSP, Giraffe and Aerometrics, with WSP acting as the prime and Giraffe and Aerometrics as being subcontractors in that engagement. When we delivered this project as part of the communications for DPE so that they could sort of spread the word on this platform, because there is plans for it to be used fairly widely, we created a video for them. And so it's a pretty good summary of how the platform operates and works. And so I'll just start with a short video, and then I'll get into the presentation fully after that. And Chow, can you just let me know if you can't hear the sound?
The New South Wales Government has developed a world-first data platform, Land IQ, that is set to revolutionise the planning system and help government make faster, smarter decisions about the use of land. Land IQ brings existing data sources into one single platform, allowing users to get a better understanding of a place or region and test how different land use scenarios might work. The platform has 4 primary capabilities that allow for rapid analysis of different land use scenarios. Geocentric Analysis allows users to compare local government areas across multiple performance indicators such as livability, productivity, and sustainability. Site Search allows users to identify suitable sites based on defined and configurable criteria such as lot size, land zone, and government property registers. The Scenario Planning tool allows for users to develop different land use scenarios and test the performance and outcomes against each option. These options allow for single or mixed use scenarios as well as density levels for each use. Design testing can either use a set of predefined designs from the library or designs that have been imported from external sources. These designs can be easily modified within the tool to ensure the design suits the site and its constraints. Land IQ has been endorsed to be the central land use evaluation tool for the New South Wales Government. While Land IQ is currently only available to New South Wales Government agencies, the plan is to continue to refine the tool and develop licence options to make it available more broadly in the future. New South Wales
Oh,
government has developed a...
Sorry, played it twice. Now, anyone listening carefully will notice that that was actually my voice in the voiceover as well. A little bit embarrassing, I suppose, but we are where we are. So, the reason Land IQ, it's a strategic land use evaluation platform. And basically what it uses is it combines a whole lot of data sets, they could be, and contextual information with a really intuitive user interface over the top that lets people identify land and figure out the best way to use it. And the idea was to place the power of that evaluation into the hands of the end users. Historically, this work would have been undertaken by consultants like WSP, took a fair bit of time, and it probably didn't use the same kind of methodology. So it was hard to compare different evaluations over time that were provided by different consultants. So the idea is to make that whole process more efficient, and it allows users to sort of rapidly test scenarios and compare them against each other as sort of that sort of pre-design phase. The whole idea is that it will improve the learning, the planning outcomes for DPE and for other government departments. And it is used to assess a variety of scenarios across urban, transport, and utility planning. And there are there's really there hasn't been a use case yet that we haven't really been able to go, yeah, we think that there's a way that Land IQ can add value to that process. And so the problem, which I sort of touched on just then, was that there's no centralized way of getting all of the points of data required to do this process. And as a result, the whole process was very time consuming. And contextualizing the value of a development just made it even harder. So the idea was to try and codify that contextual element and sort of codify the assumptions that are used in the planning process to really make it a far more rapid process. And it makes it possible now to really quickly identify what the most valuable use of land will be. And it does that in a really nuanced way. So that problem then articulated itself within the project context of the 4 key drivers for change. And so the 4 key drivers were: there's a lack of comprehensive centralized decision making. There was a lack of a comprehensive centralized data platform, and that's a common platform, a common problem that we find in multiple areas across government. This idea that data and process is very much siloed. And so Land IQ is trying to break that nexus and bring everything into one place. Because it was siloed and because it was inefficient, because it was decentralized, it took a long time to do things, months, to actually do the sorts of things that Land IQ can actually now do in minutes. And so it was expensive. And it also resulted in a lack of consistency in the way that analysis was undertaken. And so as a result, there was no whole of government sort of alignment. And so those 4 key drivers to change are the things that necessitated this project coming online. So what they wanted to achieve was improved governance, both around the decision making of how to use land, but also the governance around how data is used and how data is shared. They wanted to incentivise intra-government land transfer for priority initiatives. That is something that has actually been quite challenging for the New South Wales government in the past. And they introduced a new land use evaluation framework, which was called the Strategic Land and Property Framework. And those were our guiding principles on how it was that we were then aiming to develop Land IQ as a tool to solve these problems. And so if you think about government land, and the sort of use cases that they're sort of interested in solving, it's across transport, utilities. So transport routes. It could be bus depots. Where's the best place to put a bus depot? And that's very relevant these days with zero emission buses. It can be used to assess utilities infrastructure. And although it doesn't do linear infrastructure at the moment, we are sort of looking at options whereby Land IQ could be used as an efficient way of determining where transmission lines go. It can be used to determine the best use of land in terms of health and education. So where's the best place to put a hospital? Where's the best place to put a school? And so what they want to do is ensure that the land is used that best serves the citizen, so that the outcomes best serve the citizen. And that they also know what is needed and where it is needed and how to make those decisions. And so the idea is to bring all of this information into one single pane of glass to help make those decisions. So the solution, Land IQ, it's made up of a number of things, and I'll tease them out a little bit in the following slides. But at its core, you can think of it as a huge data consolidation platform where data is ingested from multiple sources from across government and put into one place, and then it is pre-processed, and I'll cover that a little bit in another slide. But what that does by pre-processing it, it makes the end user experience far more efficient. And so you can now, by doing this, you can search for land according to its constraints. You can understand the site's relevance in terms of the use case that you're proposing that the land be used for. And you can produce reports really, really quickly. And the reason that that's really, really valuable is that in the initial planning stages of land use, it's really good to have some options. And Land IQ will create multiple options really, really quickly. And so decisions can be made on priority land use types. And so end users can now create hypothetical buildings. And that hypothetical building, it could be a townhouse, could be a police station, could be a mixed use development that has retail and residency. It could be a hospital, it could be a school, anything that you can imagine where government gets involved in deciding how land is to be used can be evaluated through Land IQ. And then it generates quite user-friendly reports that lets the user understand how the development will impact the wider area statistically. So there's a whole lot of measures so that when you add a scenario, and I'll do this in more detail in a second, when you add a scenario, it can assess that scenario against a whole lot of criteria, livability, productivity, and such. Now, the front end of the platform, think of the platform as a data store with a sort of presentation layer on top of it. The presentation layer is actually a software as a service product called Giraffe. And so Giraffe are one of our partners in this. And so the user experience for Land IQ is all via Giraffe. And I don't know whether people on the call have had any experience with Giraffe, but it's a very, very powerful tool for doing land use evaluation. But as it's in its software as a service kind of configuration, it has access to a limited set of data. And so what WSP have done is, if you think about, so Giraffe is up the top. So that's the portal. So that's where the layers are presented. It's where you do your analysis. It's where the GIS library is presented. It's where you do the project admin reporting and the dashboarding. And it's powerful as a software as a service product. It's a very, very powerful tool. But what Land IQ does is what I would say it supercharges Giraffe by giving it access to an enormous amount of pre-processed data. And that data might be cadastral, could be topographic, could be environmental, could be planning, the codification of planning constraints, the codification of assumptions. All of that information then goes into what we call the data platform, And then that data is really efficient. So Giraffe will present all of this data very, very quickly to the end user, but it's also presenting in like a very wide variety of data sets that are cross-referenced with one another so that people can see the value of data generally is really found when you collide data sets. A single data set in and of itself is useful, but it's when you collide it with another data set that insights really start to develop. And so by pre-processing all of this information, we can collide multiple data sets together, which makes the insight that is generated even more powerful at the end of the day. So LandIQ has three actual functional components. One's called Geocentric Analysis, one is called multi-criteria search, and the last one is called scenario planning. So when we're talking about geocentric analysis, we're talking about analysing data or analysing a region, and for at LandIQ at the moment, those regions are defined as local government areas in Australia or in New South Wales. And the sorts of metrics that it's measuring are site suitability, livability, productivity, sustainability, and operational capacity. But there are 100+ indicators in total that make up the geocentric analysis of part of the tool. And just by itself, the geocentric analysis tool is a bit of a game changer for New South Wales government because it puts all of that data into one place. So now an end user, a planner within a New South Wales government department can look at geocentric analysis and compare local government areas across those 100 indicators. And you can compare one local government to another. You can look at your own single local government just to see how it currently is performing, but you can compare your local government area with another local government area to see how it performs against how they perform against each other. And then you can also see how it performs against the New South Wales state average. And those metrics are then presented in very quite intuitive and user-friendly dashboards. And the interesting thing is that when you do the other components of sort of scenario planning, which I'll cover in a couple of slides, it actually is able to calculate the impact across those indicators when for the particular land use that you're proposing. The second sort of application within LandIQ is a thing called multi-search criteria. And this is a really powerful tool as well. So a user can go in and search for, say they want to build a school, they can look for lot sizes, they can look for land that's already owned by the New South Wales government, they can specify the size of the lot that they're interested in, they can specify how far it is from other points of interest, and what it will then do, so you think of that as like a whole lot of filter conditions. What it then does is it returns all of the sites, all of the lots that conform to that criteria. So it will generally, depending on the complexity of the criteria that you're putting, it will give you multiple options that meet that criteria that then just make the evaluation of where the best place to put something so much more powerful. And so once again, this is the sort of work that traditionally has taken weeks and maybe months for a government department to undertake. They can now literally do it in seconds to get the same sort of answer. And then the final part of LandIQ, which is sort of a lot of its secret sauce, is a thing called the scenario planner. So think of a scenario as I found a lot and I now want to see what different land use mixes, land use types impact that lot. So you can, using either information that's in the library, so a standard kind of school kind of layout, a standard kind of hospital layout, or you can build them from scratch as well. You can actually start building a representation of the land use. And what it does is it then starts calculating how that land use will impact on the geocentric analysis metrics. So you get an indication of what impact will it have on productivity, what impact will it have on sustainability. It also calculates how much square footage you'll have, and you can mix that scenario. So it could be a little bit of retail, a little bit of residential. It could be a private hospital that has retail in it as well. And it does all of those calculations in the background to help you understand the impact of how that land use will operate in the context of the site. It also calculates things like shading. It gives you the solar irradiation profile of it over time, so that you can figure out whether or not the use is going to be appropriate in the context of where that land is. And so the scenario planner also then generates very useful reports that tell you what's going to be the impact on public transport. Is it going to improve it? Is it going to make it more challenging? What's the impact on this going to be on public open space? Because a lot of land may currently be open space that you're now going to take up with another use. That's going to have an impact on the open space, and it might inform the design in terms of adding maybe some open space to it if that's something that's important to you. And it, once again, calculates all this using all of the data that's pre-processed underneath and returns these answers to the end user very, very quickly. This isn't the sort of tool where you set a report, you walk away, you come back in half an hour, and it gives you the answers. The answers are presented to the user in real time, which means that they can really rapidly undertake those assessments. So we're seeing it being used fairly broadly, and we are seeing new use cases come along very regularly, and we're adding that to the sort of product roadmap. But it's typically was designed to be used for acquisitions and disposals, for precinct planning, for strategic planning, project evaluation, policy development, site selection, site feasibility. Where it really resonated was there were fairly significant or very significant floods in the northern part of New South Wales last year, and thousands of people were displaced from their homes due to the impact of the flood, and those people needed to be temporarily relocated. And being able to find land where that temporary housing could be located would have been really, really challenging had it not been for Land IQ. And so Land IQ was like a cornerstone tool for the New South Wales government to determine in really, really quick time where the most effective place and what the impact of putting that temporary housing would be in northern New South Wales. It received a lot of media attention, and it is one of the things that's helped raise the profile of Land IQ and resulted in a lot of interest, not only across New South Wales government, but other jurisdictions as well. And we're looking into how it is that this tool could be used more broadly. And so the outcome, projects should always have outcomes, is that the time taken to explore development options is significantly reduced. And that's an understatement. When I say significantly reduced, it has taken the sorts of pre-analysis down from weeks and months to minutes, which is an enormous benefit to the people who need this information when they need it. It's resulted in being able to generate far more options when you're trying to figure out how to use land. And that's really important in the pre-planning phase as well, because you can generate half a dozen options where in the past, because of those time constraints and cost constraints, you might have been limited to one or two. Now you can do half a dozen. You can do half a dozen once again in minutes, or minutes. And it's provided an enormous amount of data into the hands of end users. Data that was once upon a time siloed has now all been consolidated into one place. It's been cross-referenced so the data sources are cross-referenced with each other. And that's really, like I said, that's really where the power of insight comes to the fore, is when you are able to collide data sets to generate insights. And there was an enormous amount of work built into what we call the assumptions. So once again, this is one of those parts of sort of the consulting world where assumptions aren't necessarily the same. Different organisations have different assumptions. They apply those assumptions in different ways. What LandIQ has done is it's codified that whole process so that those assumptions are applied in a consistent manner, and so that the outcomes are consistent, that they're repeatable, and that they're actually probably predictable. And so, yeah, it's really enabled users to get down to a really granular level of assessment, probably superior to the level of assessment that was done manually in the past, and faster. So I realised I've kind of raced through that. So in summary, what LandIQ is, it's the Giraffe Platform, software as a service platform, powered and managed by the data analytics platform that WSP have built. It's available to all New South Wales government agencies and is actually the default land use evaluation tool for New South Wales government. We are working on making it available to local government users at the moment, but there is some complexity around the sensitivity of the data that needs to be managed that we're working through at the moment. Importantly, and this is a really good lesson learned, is that the reason that it has been so successful was the level of engagement that we undertook across New South Wales government agencies to make sure that the tool was going to be fit for purpose, that it was going to solve the problem, and that it was going to address those key drivers for change that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. It leverages a common data platform. It leverages common assumptions. And because of that commonality, the outputs are more consistent, they're more transparent, and they are more evidence-based. It's a far more quantifiable view of the world rather than the sort of qualitative components that these assessments traditionally may have had. And they are really aiming to reduce the different methodologies and tools that were applied. Once again, to provide consistent outcomes and to aim for consistent outcomes. And it integrates with another large platform within the New South Wales government called the New South Wales Government Spatial Digital Twin, which interestingly WSP also had a hand in developing. And just as a sort of final aside for it, LandIQ the project was underway when I joined WSP. And then as I became more and more familiar with it, and having seen a whole range of products across a whole range of different sectors throughout my career, I would personally assess it. And I know now I've probably got a bit of a vested interest in trying to extol its virtues, but it is the product that I have seen in the market, especially in this space, that has the best problem-product fit. It really does deliver the outcomes to an end user in a really efficient manner to an enormously high degree of quality, which is really what you want from a project like this. And so just in terms of WSP's role in this, we were the prime contractor. We provided the project management, the business analysis, which was an enormous undertaking. You can imagine when you've got to engage so many stakeholders across government. We did the software engineering, we did the platform engineering, we did the data science and analytics, and that was an enormous job as well. This idea of curating the data so that data sets can be collided is a significant task, especially with the size of the data sets and the breadth of data sets that we had to ingest and manage. We did the geospatial analysis. A lot of the layers within Land IQ are geospatial in nature. And we leveraged, and this is one of the strengths of WSP, is that WSP Digital are a software engineering house at its core. We do a whole lot of other things as well. But what we are able to do is reach back into the expertise that WSP has. And you know, the joke is that WSP has an engineer for everything lying somewhere, but we also have a whole lot of other expertise, and we have an enormous array of planning expertise. And so those planners and that planning expertise was vital in ensuring that the product that was produced at the end of the day was going to be fit for purpose. And we assisted in the design of the actual layout, so to make it intuitive and user friendly. So where we are is that it started in 2021, and then we went up until the early 2022, which is where we undertook user acceptance testing before going live. It's now been live since sort of the first half of 2022. It's been actively used throughout New South Wales government, and we are receiving requests for enhancements that sort of, like a government department like education or health will have a look at Land IQ and go, yeah, it's good, but can you get it to do this? And so that's resulted in a sort of product roadmap where we're adding tailored enhancements that make it more fit for purpose for different departments and the way that they undertake land use evaluation. We have, the contract has been renewed in 2023, and we're looking to renew it again. And there is a significant backlog, I would say, of enhancements that will come to the fore as the product rolls out. As I said, it is used by New South Wales government at the moment. We are in the process of making it available to local government, and we are investigating avenues where it can be made available to other jurisdictions and other user types. So you can imagine this sort of tool would be really useful for research and development. And so there is preliminary discussions on how it is that it can be made available more broadly. But I would say that the future is pretty bright for Land IQ. We can see that its use will extend within the New South Wales government, but we can also see it being extended into other jurisdictions across Australia and indeed across the world.